family here, the original family. To Manitoba, come back into Canada in Manitoba. And along the way, he stopped at a place in North Dakota, which is in the States, America.
Yeah.
Little town, farming town, just south of the border. And he started working for the blacksmith. This was the blacksmith's daughter, like making horseshoes and stuff and pounding hot metal. This was his daughter, so he married her. And this guy here, this little guy, he was the youngest. And if you go back to where I grew up in this area, he moved there too and farmed, and his offsprings are still around there. And so we were like, they have all these like second and third cousins around there, and some first cousins.
My dad's father, my grandfather, Bill Jones, came to Manitoba in 1901 to settle this piece of land at Tilston, Manitoba. So he had to walk about 16 miles through just the countryside. There was no roads, there's no bridges, crossing creeks along the way to lay claim to this piece of land near Tilston. So in order to maintain the homestead, you have to start developing land, building a house or tilling the land. So in 1902, he acquired these 4 horses from Montana, and they were wild horses, not on train. So he had to train them to work and ride. And in one day in 1902, he was tilling the land with these horses, and one of them kicked him in the head, and he lay unconscious on the ground for apparently 8 hours until his partner, his wife's brother, appeared on the scene and rescued him from this situation. And he could have easily died, and then I guess that would have been the end of this story. I would have never been even here. He had died that day, but he survived it, and they continued to use horses for years because they had to build roads and bridges. There was, this is basically, undeveloped land, and they had to build their buildings, so they used all this horsepower to do all this heavy work to help them finish these tasks. So that's was the reality of the situation, because there's no other way other than used horsepower. There's no tractors or anything. So so that's kind of how they were dependent on these animals to help them out on this endeavor they were undertaking. My dad's family, he had 7 brothers. They're all sitting on a bench here in proper order, oldest to youngest, and my dad's the third from the end because he was the third youngest, the son in line. My grandfather Nelson Kendrick and Harriet, his wife, they came to the area like about 10 miles away from where my dad's family was homesteading, and they came with their family. Nelson came with his older brother Richard, and they settled in the Dublin district about 1901. His brother was quite a bit older, so he had brought his whole family. So he brought about six family members with him from Ontario. And my grandfather, he wasn't married yet, but he did end up marrying the school teacher that was one of the original teachers at the school that they built. And they had they had 4 sons, and my mom, the only daughter. She was the youngest. She had 4. My mom had 4 older brothers, and they all worked on the farm. And 2 of them ended up farming in the district, and the other 2 went off and worked other jobs and didn't bother engaging in farming. And my mom was the youngest. She ended up marrying my dad in 1950 and settled, on the farm near Tilston.
Well, I was born to it, I guess, because my families were farm settlers in southern Manitoba in 1900. My mom's family and my dad's family both settled in southwest Manitoba, about 10 miles apart. After the World War II, my dad came back to that same area and got a loan to buy farmland and settled about a mile away from where my grandfather had homesteaded. He married my mom in 1951 and we had 4 kids, and we all worked on the farm until the 70s, and when some of us started to leave. But it was just a good experience working on this small farm that was, cash crops, and we sold cream and sold beef and pork, and we also grew subsistence gardens and raised chickens to eat for subsistence as well. So it was a lot of chores to do and a lot of work every day, and we all worked together and got it done. So I moved away from the farm in the early 1980s. The farm wasn't expanded. My brother was in line to be the farmer. Which was the eldest son, so he was in line to be the farmer. So I was left in about 1983, and I moved to Brandon and did work construction and renovations and drywall and painting, and was still involved with the family farm in a limited way, but I was also involved in like National Farmers Union issues, which was like a political kind of wing of the farm movement. And they offered this trip to the Caribbean to work on a small banana farm. So I did that in 1988, and it kind of gave me an idea about maybe I didn't need to be on a big farm, and maybe a small farm would be the way to go. So that's when I started a small vegetable garden and sold at farm markets in Brandon, Manitoba. And around that time I met my wife Rachel, and she expressed desire to leave Brandon, Manitoba, and she saw a job opportunity in Nanaimo, BC. So she asked me about that, and I says, yeah, what the heck, I got nothing holding me back here. So we moved to Nanaimo in 1991, and I enrolled in a 2-year horticultural program at Malaspina College. Had nothing to do with the farming I had experienced. It was like all about greenhouse and horticulture. So I completed that, and then we had our first child, Ewan, and we moved to Cedar, bought a small acreage outside of Cedar, in the Cedar Yellow Point, and we started gardening there right away, and we grew gardens there till about 97. Then we moved to another place on Donna Road, which is just down the road from here, and we grew gardens there until about 2007. And meanwhile, the cedar market was starting to develop a bit, and we wondered if there was a niche market we could meet in that market. So we started growing these Asian greens, Mizuna, arugula, and kale, and making these mixed salads. And it was kind of slow for a couple of years, but the market started to pick up, and we were actually attracting new shoppers at this market because of the different salad greens we were growing. It was like much different than the normal lettuces and spinach and whatever else that was being sold there. And we kept growing that market, and we started growing garlic and some other vegetables. And then in 2011, the place we're at now on Dual Road came up for sale, and this realtor friend said, well, you should buy it. They reduced the price, so we made an offer on the place, and we got the financing, and then we really started to expand our farming. We had good land, good slope, good exposure, and it just took off from there. Ideas about having a garden, and that was
first book I read, and I still apply some of that knowledge today. Local people, Gary Argyle from Nanaimo, long time small scale farmer, successful, just ran his own market and everything. He gave me a lot of inspiration, a lot of tips on how to garden, how to grow and scale up your production. And Laura and Barb Eagle from the New Edibles, they were always good people to talk to. They tried for years to make a go of it in the garden. Even in their old age, they were still doing it. And key people that helped me during my early years here, which was a huge amount of work, just setting this whole place up, because basically it was just a sheep pasture, and I had to transform it into a small farm with irrigation and all that. It was like, first person that comes to mind would be my good friend Jimmy Messier. He was a young guy from Quebec, grew up on a vegetable farm, full of knowledge, full of passion, and he helped me so much in the first couple of years, just getting this place running. And my neighbor Jim and Sue Benoit, they were really great people, just backing me up, helping me. They were retired and just willing to help me with the water, and got ponds enlarged, and set up irrigation systems. And yeah, it was just like so many people helped me and encouraged me, and that's what you just can't do this thing. There's always a backstory about how these so-called successes happen, and that's kind of a brief overview of what my experience was. We're really pleased when our son Ewan, offered to come back and help us on the farm because it's going on 2 years or more. He's really been a big help, and I was really proud of him to be able to come back and start taking on some of the roles here and learning the craft of running and growing food. He does markets, so he's around here, taking care of the place, which is also a big relief to me. It's gonna be looked after. I'm not here. And also, he's been making things. He's made a bean sheller, and he's been making planks with a chainsaw, and just learning all sorts of skills here. It's been really great. I'm not sure if it's his passion or not, but it's like a good skill to have, to be able to manage a small farm and grow your own food.
This is a bean sheller that we made last winter. It was inspired by a guy on YouTube. Found this video of this old guy called Cecil Ray. He was from North Carolina, and he had this bean sheller, pretty much the same as this. And looks like he had a lot of fun making it, so I just made one pretty much the exact same. Yeah. I think what he did before was we would get like a big garbage bucket, and then put like a piece of like a rod, and then put a chain on it, and then put the beans in the garbage bucket, put the rod in the chain, and then put that on a drill. So it's like a chain spinning around really fast. So that kind of worked, but it was just kind of dusty, and it was alright, but I think this is a little more convenient. Like all these pulleys, I bought all those, and the belts and stuff. Other than that, I just went to the hardware store, or the lumber yard, and got the plywood. Some of it was already sitting here, so. And then like a little 1/2 horsepower motor in the back, just bought that on Kijiji. So. Motor in the back comes with this belt, and that turns this rod inside here at about 500 RPM, and that has these paddles on it. So that doesn't turn this drum. So this rod comes all the way through, and then there's more pulleys on this side, and then there's a really big pulley here. So it makes it so these paddles spin at 500-ish RPM, and then this drum will spin at like 60. So it's way slower. So then the idea is that the beans will fall out through here, but the shells will stay inside, and then they'll fall down into this here, and the beans will kind of fall down there. Yeah, so you still get some shells, but it's pretty easy to clean with just some compressed air. Yeah, mostly you just got beans.
I'm sitting in front of the book wall that's owned by my dearly beloved wife of 31 years, Rachel. The British professor of psychology that married the prairie farm boy. Rachel worked tirelessly for years, 34 to be exact, as a psychology professor. She put students in front of everybody, including herself. She touched many lives and stirred the creativity in many students to write things about themselves and their lives and how to make their lives better. She's a dedicated person who took her job so seriously that she never would miss a day of work. She worked many hours in the night after work, preparing for lectures. We raised two beautiful children together, and she allowed me to be a farmer all these years, and I thank her so much for that. And the best thing is we still love each other very much, even though I'm still farming.